In my experience, one area that older games have over newer games is the ability to surprise me. It's not that current games aren't innovative, but I do think that games in past decades tended to have some more experimental areas and ideas that wouldn't fly in the current day, at least not outside of the indie scene. Baten Kaitos' Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean embraces that experimental nature, and while the results are a mixed bag, I'm more than happy to recommend the game because when the game missed, it was mildly annoying at worst, and when it hit, whew, boy did it connect. Baten Kaitos' Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean is the first game of the Baten Kaitos series, turn-based RPGs developed by Monolith Soft and Crescendo and published by Namco. The game was originally developed as a chance to give the younger developers on the Monolith Soft team more experience while the main team focused on the Xeno Saga games. The game came out for the GameCube in Japan in 2003, then got localized for North America and released in 2004, with the PAL regions getting it in 2005. While the game did get a prequel in Baten Kaitos Origins not too long after, the first game has languished on the GameCube for quite a while. With the merger between Namco and Bandai and then the purchase of Monolith Soft by Nintendo, the studios look very different than they did during the original collaboration. Nevertheless, this year brought the announcement of a remaster courtesy of Bandai Namco that combined both Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean and Origins into one cartridge as Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 Remastered. This version of the game released in September 2023 for the Switch. It was through that remaster that I finally got the opportunity to play the game, but I decided after playing the first game to give it and Origins different videos, hence why this video is titled as it is. The game originally came out to pretty positive reviews, with one of the few major critiques focusing on the English voice acting. Believe me, I will cover that later. The remaster was received more warily because in spite of several helpful quality of life features plus the removal of the poorly received English dub, the game was limited to 30 FPS, and Bandai Namco's history of remasters has been quite poor. Nevertheless, the game that had previously been stuck on the GameCube was now available to a new, modern audience, and I certainly enjoyed my experience with it. In Baten Kaitos, you take control of a guardian spirit, a being of power who can only affect the general human world through bonding with people and guiding them. Our spirit serves in that role for Callus, a man with a rough backstory and a vendetta to settle. Part of that rough backstory is the discrimination Callus faced for being born with just one wing instead of the normal two. He does have a second artificial wing, though constructed by his late grandfather. As we begin our adventures, Callus meets a determined woman named Zelha wandering the woods looking for a certain something. That something is an ancient Magnus, the magic cards that are a foundational part of the game's story and gameplay, one of several used to seal away an evil god. While initially Callus has little interest in continuing to help Zelha in her quest to keep the Magnuses out of the wrong hands, when fate gives him a chance to fulfill his vendetta by working with Zelha, he joins the cause. Together, they, plus several other characters they meet on their journey, will work to stop a world-shattering catastrophe while also trying to resolve their own personal conflicts as well. I'm ready to proclaim that description to be a Monolith Soft staple now that I've played more than just the Xenoblade games. Baten Kaitos is a good game overall, but the one area that I think does not show any age at all is the story. I'm not going to go too deep into details, but while the main structure is pretty familiar with traveling between different floating islands to collect items to thwart the evil machinations of the Empire, the way the game tells it and the journey the characters go on is where the real magic lies. Callus and his standoffish personality aids in that journey, and the rest of the cast are good as well, if not spectacular. The world feels rich with plenty of details on each land and how they live. Just don't think too deeply about the village made of candy and how that's supposed to function. The locations and characters feel distinct, and that helps give weight to the narrative as we strive to protect the people and persuade the other nations to stand up to the Empire. Good writing and thoughtful world building will always stand out for me, and Baten Kaitos certainly accomplished that in this first game. And for those interested, this story is gonna take you for a ride. Now, the gameplay of Baten Kaitos revolves around the Magnuses, basically cards of power that you organize into decks for each character when it comes to combat. You have up to 3 allies in battle at one time, and the turns proceed based on who is the fastest character. You'll engage enemies from the overworld map and then head into the battle screen. You cannot switch characters out during battle. I really wish we could. But if you lose, you get the chance to retry, and before starting the retry, you can adjust the party, their decks of Magnuses, and other details, which is very helpful if you end up in a battle with a party that's not going to work in that first try. When one of your character's turns comes around, you want to select your cards to either attack the enemies or heal/buff allies. Your attack items have a certain attack power that also usually has an element. The 6 elements in the game are fire, water, wind, chrono, dark, and light, and you'll have to use these elements well to take down many of the enemies. Healing, on the other hand, comes almost entirely from food and drink items, which are crucial to gather. A lot of enemies, especially the bosses, have incredibly powerful attacks, so having healing cards on hand will be essential. In addition, the elements are also important to pay attention to when defending from those attacks. Like your attacks, the enemy's attacks have a base attack level you want to defend against, and sometimes elemental attacks as well. If the enemy is attacking with fire, you want to defend with water. Attacking with chrono, defend with wind, you get the picture. Of course, this is basically a card game. The cards you want at certain moments will not necessarily be there when you need them. Between your 3 embattled allies, though, you'll have to work and adjust your tactics on the fly as you draw more cards. Once you can't draw any more cards, you'll have to take a turn to reshuffle. Again, this is something your opponents will also have to deal with, and it's certainly dangerous for whoever is reshuffling. I like this combat system. I think the game gives a lot of ways to build your decks and create great synergies. There is absolutely nothing that feels better than a perfectly executed turn where all the cards fall into place. The main reason, though, I think this system avoids frustration is that one bad hand is not usually enough to lose you a fight. There are some exceptions for the few battles that are really difficult or not well balanced, but for the most part, I always saw failure as a chance to readjust and get back in because I was never too far gone. Despite my praise, though, there are certainly some annoyances that I believe will be addressed in the sequel from what I've heard. Things like having cards that are useful at some point but not right now getting stuck in your hand for a long time instead of giving the opportunity to discard. There's also the timing element of it, as you need to make sure you play your next card before your character's action on screen is finished, and you can only play a single card in advance, no matter how long your combo can go on for. I don't think this is an intuitive system for those starting out, but it is highly rewarding if you take the time to learn it and dive into how it works. There are some early NPCs that are worth your time to talk to in order to start your path to understanding the combat in depth. At least to a certain extent. I know there's still plenty I did very little with, such as the SP combos, but that just makes it better for me. You can really work to master the basics, and that will carry you throughout while still giving more to those who want to get even more advanced. A major thing to keep in mind throughout your journey with regard to Magnuses, though, is that they age. What once was a bamboo shoot will one day become a bamboo stick, and that changes how it can be used. The food that you're using to heal yourself now, several hours more in game and that food will go bad, which you can then use on enemies to try to poison them. This is based on real in-game hours, by the way. It certainly adds a different dynamic to the game, and I like the idea behind it. I wasn't wowed by the system though. Once I adjusted to it, the changing Magnuses became more of a fact of life and vaguely annoying. I wish there were more times when aging an item made it better, or at least make those few instances not take so frickin' long. In addition to your Magnuses, for the combat you also have a set of special blank Magnuses that you can infuse with various things while traveling around the world. This can be everything from fire to apples. These are used in the main non-combat gameplay to solve puzzles in dungeons, transport items that couldn't otherwise be moved, bring things to people on entirely different islands, etc. These are useful in both the main story and certainly in the various side quests dotted around, so try to keep a couple handy. Like with the regular Magnuses though, these age as well, so that nice snow you got before will melt with time. That pickup line you heard will become outdated, and yes, that is an actual example of a Magnus you can collect in the game. It's an excellent blend of bringing the world-building details into game mechanics and vice versa. I just wish the animation didn't take as long to perform. One very important area to get familiar with early on is the church. At all of the blue save flowers you will find on your adventures, you can of course save there and also visit the church. It is at the church that you can pray and level up your characters or improve their class rank. You will gather experience from fighting battles, but unless you pray in the church, your characters will not improve. It is a bit tiresome to deal with instead of the standard level up, but there is a bonus for waiting. If you wait until you can level your characters up by 10 levels, the maximum you can level them up by, your stats will boost more than if you did 10 separate levels, praying 10 times, instead of the 1. It is also in the church that you'll get the chance to help restore the star chart. If you find various constellations in your journey, which you should if you go around examining all that you can give it to a man in the church area who will reward you with items as you fill in the star chart. I didn't do a lot of side content in Baten Kaitos, but you best believe I was collecting all the constellations I could. Now on the money side of things, you mainly gain money not from defeating enemies, but by taking their pictures. Pictures of monsters gets you lots of money. The bigger the enemy, the more money you get. So while you're in combat, try to get some moments where the boss is really smiling, and you can get a nice picture and a nice payday. Presentation-wise, Baten Kaitos Remastered does look somewhat better than the original. It's not a huge jump, but it is there. Probably the remaster was held back somewhat by being exclusive for the Switch and couldn't do bigger things. The style itself is very reminiscent of that era of RPGs, with the distant lens on a slightly elevated perspective. I did really like the use of color in the game, with the environments feeling very distinct as we move between locations, and even the NPCs having notable color palettes that are atypical for NPCs in other games. Our main cast looks great as well, although it does stick with standard character looks. You pretty much know what each character is like just through their outfit. The music is nice at every point, with special shoutouts going to the boss battle themes, which I think were excellent. Given how long some of those fights took, I'm really glad they were, otherwise I might not have enjoyed those battles as much. Now, Baten Kaitos Remaster removed the English dub from the Switch release, and I'd say the Japanese audio was fine. However, I of course wanted to check out the quality of the English dub myself since I was curious, so I decided to find a video of what I considered the most crucial scene in the entire game, and oh my god, I get why they took it out. I don't know why the quality was so low, but it was painful to listen to and took away any gravitas that moment was supposed to have. This poor quality, of course, is even more inexplicable when you realize the opening cutscene is voiced in English in quite good quality with completely different actors and scenes. That must have been quite the whiplash back in the day. Given the game's unusual gameplay style, it does take some time to get used to the UI, and I think once I did, the information was presented clearly so I could understand easily. The UX is a more mixed bag, with the controls doing what they're supposed to, but the game just adding in extra steps to make everything take longer than necessary. I see this with the church and the blank Magnuses especially, but it's also present in combat with how you go about playing cards, and the menus within menu, in the non-combat side of things. Nothing is broken, but the system feels stiff and not straightforward at times. One thing I did absolutely love in the game was the options menu that allowed you to bypass encounters entirely, defeat everything in one hit, increase battle speed, increase outside of battle speed, etc. I used all of these at one point or another, and especially the first two when it came to longer puzzle dungeons when I really did want to be interrupted as I'm trying to figure the puzzle out. The speed increases do make sense since the game's animations are slow, but at least on the battle side, it did make me worse at fighting because a lot of playing cards is timing based. You have a narrow window already, so while I liked having the option, I turned it off very soon after trying it. It didn't really work with Baten Kaitos as a game. For those who are fans of Monolith Soft's brand of storytelling, for those interested in a unique gameplay system that ties into the narrative and world building, and finally, those just looking for a classic RPG to play on Switch, Baten Kaitos Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean is all of that and more, and definitely has my recommendation. I'm looking forward, after I take a short break to play Star Ocean The Second Story R and Persona 5 Tactica, to getting back to the series and playing Baten Kaitos Origins. What do you think of Baten Kaitos, whether that's the GameCube original or Switch remaster? Let me know in the comments and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to make sure you get my videos when they're posted, and thank you for watching. Have a great day, and happy gaming.